I got a call from the hospital, your son's been hurt. But I've never had a son. What I discovered next shattered everything I knew, and gave me the one thing I never thought I'd have, a family. It was a Thursday afternoon when the call came. I remember because I'd just gotten back from the hardware store, trying to fix a leak under the kitchen sink that had been bothering me for weeks. I was standing in the garage, sorting through a box of old tools, when my phone rang. A known number. Normally I don't pick those up, but something made me answer. Mr. Walker? The voice said. This is Dr. Patel from St. Luke's Medical Center. I'm calling about your son. He's been in an accident. I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe it was a wrong number. I don't have a son. I've never had a son. I'm 52 years old, divorced, no kids. I told her that. I said, I think you've got the wrong person. She paused. Are you not James Walker? Yes, I am. And your date of birth is October 3rd, 1973? Yes. Then I'm afraid this isn't a mistake. I didn't know what to say. My heart was pounding, but my mind was blank. She gave me an address and told me to come as soon as I could. I didn't ask questions. I just got in the truck and drove. The hospital was about 40 minutes away, just outside of Harrisburg. I remember the drive being quiet, no music, no radio, just the sound of the tires on the road and my thoughts racing. I kept thinking maybe it was some kind of identity theft, or maybe someone had listed me as an emergency contact by mistake. I didn't know what I was walking into. When I got there, they took me to the ICU. A nurse led me down a hallway and into a small room with a window looking into another room. Inside was a boy, maybe 17 or 18, hooked up to machines. His face was bruised, his arm in a cast, and there was a bandage around his head. He looked unconscious. Dr. Patel came in and explained that he'd been in a car accident, hit by a drunk driver while crossing the street. She said he was lucky to be alive. Then she handed me a clipboard with his intake form. Name, Caleb Walker. Emergency contact, James Walker. Relationship, father. I stared at the paper for a long time. I told her again that I didn't have a son. She looked at me carefully, then said, he insisted you were his father. He gave us your name, your birth date, and your phone number. He said you didn't know about him. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I asked if I could speak to him, but she said he wasn't conscious. I asked if he'd said anything else, and she said he'd asked for me before he passed out. I sat in the waiting room for hours. I didn't know what I was waiting for. I didn't know if I should stay or leave. I kept thinking maybe it was some kind of prank, or maybe he was confused. But the details were too specific. My name, my number, my birthday. That wasn't random. Eventually, a social worker came to talk to me. Her name was Karen. She said Caleb had been living in a group home for the past 2 years. Before that, he'd been in foster care. She said he'd been trying to find his biological father for a while. She asked if I'd ever donated sperm. I laughed at first. It sounded ridiculous. But then I remembered something. I was 22, broke, and living in Pittsburgh. I'd done it once, maybe twice, for money. I never thought about it again. I didn't even know if anything came of it. I told her that, and she nodded. She said Caleb had been adopted as a baby, but the adoption fell through when he was 6. After that, he bounced around the system. She said he'd found some paperwork recently that led him to me. I didn't know what to feel. I was angry, confused, scared. I kept thinking if this is true, then I have a son I never knew about. A son who's lying in a hospital bed, broken and alone. And he asked for me. I stayed overnight in the hospital. They gave me a cot in the family room. I didn't sleep much. I kept staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together the timeline. Trying to remember who I was back then, what kind of person I was. I wasn't proud of that time in my life. I drank too much, worked dead-end jobs, made stupid decisions. I never thought about the consequences. I never thought about the future. The next morning, Caleb woke up. They let me sit with him. He looked at me and smiled weakly. You came, he said. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. He told me he'd been looking for me for a year. Said he found my name on a document in the group home's files. Said he tracked me down through public records. I asked him why he didn't reach out sooner. He said he was scared I wouldn't want to know him. I told him I didn't know he existed. I told him I wasn't ready for this. He nodded like he understood. Then he said, I just wanted to know where I came from. That hit me hard. I didn't know how to respond. I felt like I'd missed out on something huge. A whole life. A whole person. And now he was here, and I didn't know what to do. I stayed with him for the next few days. We talked a little. He told me about the places he'd lived, the people he'd met. He said he liked drawing, that he wanted to be an animator. He showed me some sketches he'd done on his phone. They were good. Really good. I started bringing him food from outside the hospital. Burgers, fries, milkshakes. He said hospital food sucked. I agreed. We didn't talk about the past much. It felt too heavy. But there was something between us. Something I couldn't explain. One night, I asked him if he hated me. For not being there. For not knowing. He said no. He said he didn't blame me. He said he just wanted a chance to know me. That was the moment everything shifted. I realized I wanted to know him too. I wanted to be there. Not just out of guilt or obligation, but because I felt something real. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I started coming every day. I brought books, movies, snacks. We watched old cartoons together. He laughed at the dumb jokes. I laughed too. It felt good. It felt right. But then things got complicated. A few weeks after the accident, Caleb was discharged. He still had a limp and needed physical therapy, but he was cleared to leave. The group home said they'd take him back, but I couldn't stomach the idea. I told them I'd take him in. I didn't know what I was doing, didn't have a plan, but I knew I couldn't let him go back to that place. I had a spare room in the house. It used to be my office, but I cleared it out and bought a bed, a desk, some posters. He moved in with just a backpack and a sketchpad. I remember watching him walk through the front door, looking around like he didn't believe it was real. I didn't either. The first few days were quiet. We were both trying to figure out how to be around each other. I'd never lived with a teenager. He'd never lived with someone who actually wanted him there. I cooked dinner, he helped clean up. We watched TV, made small talk. It was awkward, but it was something. One night, I found him crying in his room. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat with him. He said he didn't know how to be normal. Said he felt broken. I told him I felt the same way. That I'd spent most of my life feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. That I'd made mistakes I couldn't fix. He looked at me and said, "Then maybe we're not so different." That stuck with me. Over the next few months, we settled into a rhythm. He started school again, made a few friends. I drove him to therapy twice a week. He kept drawing, filling sketchbooks with characters and stories. I started to learn who he was, not just as a kid, but as a person. He was funny, sharp, a little cynical. He had this way of seeing the world that was both hopeful and heartbreaking. I found myself changing too. I stopped drinking. Started waking up early, cooking breakfast, asking about his day. I didn't recognize myself sometimes. But I liked who I was becoming. We had our fights. Of course we did. He'd get moody, shut down, push me away. I'd lose my temper, say something I regretted. But we always came back to each other. We always talked it out. That was new for me. I'd spent most of my life running from conflict. With Caleb, I stayed. One day, he asked me about his mother. I told him the truth, I didn't know. I'd never met her. It was a clinic. Anonymous. He nodded, didn't ask more. But I could see it bothered him. I started looking into it, trying to find records, names, anything. I hit dead ends. The clinic had closed years ago. No one knew anything. I told him I was sorry. He said it was okay. Said he had me now. That wrecked me. I started thinking about all the years I'd missed. His first steps, first words, birthdays, school plays. I'd missed everything. And yet, here he was, giving me a chance. I didn't feel like I deserved it. But I wasn't going to waste it. We took a trip that summer. Just the two of us. Drove up to Maine, stayed in a cabin by the lake. We fished, hiked, made bonfires. He told me it was the best week of his life. I told him it was mine too. One night, we sat by the water, watching the stars. He said, "Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you'd known about me sooner?" I said, "Every day." He nodded. Me too. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I was doing everything right. But I knew I loved him. I knew I'd fight for him. I knew I'd be there. A few months later, he got accepted into an art program in New York. Full scholarship. I cried when he told me. He hugged me and said, "You're the reason I made it." I drove him to the city, helped him move into his dorm. We stood outside the building and he said, "I'm glad you answered the phone." I said, "Me too." He walked inside and I stood there for a long time, watching the door. I felt proud. I felt scared. I felt like a father. I still don't know how it all happened. How a phone call changed everything. How a stranger became my son. But I know this, sometimes life gives you a second chance. And if you're lucky, you take it. I did. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content like this.